Farm Tableau is a body of work that's been created within the Google Street View engine. There's 5 works looking at farms within Surrey, British Columbia. I chose specifically to look at suburban farmers, kind of in this junction between industry, residential housing, and then the traditional agricultural lands that resided there. What I'm showing you at the moment is actually the very, very first Google Street View or Farm Tableau created. These are explorative artworks that have been created in conjunction and partnership with John M Lynch, a Google Business Street View photographer. When you type in Google Maps, or you can type in the address, or you can type in a name, Zaklan Heritage Farm is a small farm off 84th Avenue that we can go in and see. You've got a couple of options in the current Google Street View engine. You can see still photos, you can actually see the street view, which takes you up and down the crossroads, or we can literally go inside. And when we go inside, we actually literally are in the processing part of the barn. And there's this beautiful Russian garlic being processed it. And because it's Google Street View, we've got this opportunity to go 360 and pretty well see everything in and around there. So we can see this processing. This type of image that we see here compositionally is what I would consider an artwork. It's a tableau. It's something that I would want to print out. But a tableau often refers to this idea of a tableau vivant, someone living, something present within it. And if we turn around, we actually see the 2 farmers, which are Ev and George Zaklan. Their family has owned the Zaklan farm, or Heritage Farm as it's now called, for several generations. And when I produced this work with John Lynch, we weren't really sure how it was going to work, whether people could actually hold and stand still for up to 40 minutes in order to create this type of interactive artwork that you find now here within the Google engine. We can go in and around, we can turn, we can see what's being done. But as I say, what makes this unusual is that the participants have been staged. They're standing still specifically for the camera. We can also go out. We can look at other portions of it. But anywhere where there's a door in Google, under sort of its conventions of how Google Street View works, when it's kind of off-road, we can go explore. And so what you find here is you find 2 things. We see sort of something here in the distance, and we can also move our chevron arrows here. What I'll do is I'll just take you for kind of a quick wander this way, down this path. And we've got this opportunity to see 2 bus stops. And if we move our arrow forward, we actually come across a portrait of myself. I'm very well known for having produced a large body of work called Every Bus Stop in Surrey, BC, and I couldn't think of a better place in terms of a portrait to be caught kind of lingering within the Zaklan farm and photographing a bus stop. It's kind of an allusion to an earlier body of work I've made. Additionally, working in a new medium like Google Street View, there's not been any precedence or any other type of work within it. You have to find a way of kind of signing it. And there is no signature in Google Street View, so the only thing I could do was actually position myself within the actual farm. So in this capacity, I've done this portrait, but we also have the ability of coming across another scene, and I'll take you forward to it. So this is the barn where George and Ev are at work, and if we go across the fields, we can actually see the acreage that's being farmed. We come here and we come across the next generation, or the grandnephew, which is Doug and his partner Gemma. And they're growing a huge assortment of root crops and vegetables. And part of it is, of course, the daily work is irrigating or physically collecting and double checking that beans and related items that are going to be harvested are in good order. And everything done on the Zaklan farm is pretty well done by hand. And so here you come across the beans being sorted by Doug, who's standing, but you also come here and you can actually see Gemma at work. We can also go close, and we can also see the relationship of this farm to the encroaching residential neighborhood that sits in adjacent to it. And this is of course, the kind of binary to Surrey's urban planning, is that there is now larger pieces of farmland that have been converted to residential districts, but older farms or farmers that continue to maintain their practice are now somehow enclosed by the urban environment. What makes this really special, and I've mentioned it in many times, is that the participants stood up to 40 minutes in order to allow this to happen. And for Gemma, this was really quite significant because she was actually kneeling for the whole day. And, that's quite hard to actually sit in this sort of motionless position for this very length of time. But I have to thank Doug and Gemma because, as well as George and Ev, they created the very first farm tableau, and they also gave us a sense of how a work could be created in Google Street View.